This is SOSF. Clear your schedule. We're going deep today, folks. There's this company. A company that's so secretive and so powerful, it feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's called Palantir. Yeah. Palantir. And if you're a nerd like me, you hear that name and you immediately think of The Lord of the Rings. You know, the seeing stones, the crystal balls that let Sauron and the good guys spy on each other across Middle-earth. It's the perfect name for them, because that's essentially what they do. They build crystal balls for the modern age. This isn't your average Silicon Valley startup that makes an app for ordering tacos or sharing cat videos. This thing was born in the shadows, man. It was started back in 2003 by some of the original guys from the PayPal crew, the so-called PayPal Mafia. We're talking about Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Joe Lonsdale. These are not your typical tech brothers. Thiel is this billionaire, almost Bond villain level thinker. And the whole idea for Palantir came from their time at PayPal, where they had to build these insane systems to stop Russian mobsters from ripping them off with credit card fraud. They got so good at seeing patterns in the data, at connecting the dots that no human could see, that they could spot the criminals in a sea of millions of transactions. After 9/11 happened, they had this thought. It was a crazy thought, but it made perfect sense. What if they could take that same technology, that same fraud detection DNA, and point it at a much bigger problem? What if they could point it at terrorists? So that's what they did. This wasn't a company that started in a garage with a dream of an IPO. This thing was basically forged in the fires of national security. One of their very first investors wasn't some venture capital firm on Sand Hill Road. It was a firm called InQ Telephone, and InQ is the venture capital arm of the CIA. Let that sink in for a second. The CIA looked at this fledgling company and said, yeah, we need a piece of that. They gave them a couple $1,000,000 to get started. That tells you everything you need to know about where this company came from. Their mission from day one wasn't to get a billion users. It was to solve the hardest problems for the most important organizations in the world. They were building software for spies and soldiers. This origin story is the key to understanding everything about Palantir. They didn't start by trying to sell software to Walmart. They started by going to the most demanding, most paranoid, most high-stakes customers on the planet, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Defense. These are people who can't afford for their software to crash. They can't afford a data leak. Lives are literally on the line. So Palantir spent the better part of 2 decades building systems in that crucible. They were honing their technology against real-world adversaries, against people who were actively trying to hide, to deceive, to adapt. It's one thing to build an algorithm that recommends a movie. It's a whole other thing to build an algorithm that helps track down the world's most wanted man. And yeah, the rumors have been out there for years that Palantir's software played a role in the operation to find Osama bin Laden. The company is super tight-lipped, but that's the legend. And that legend is worth more than any marketing campaign. So for years, that's who Palantir was. They were this mysterious contractor for the 3-letter agencies. They operated in the background, this secret weapon for the Western world. Their business was split into 2 big buckets. The first, and for a long time the biggest, was their government work. This is their bread and butter, their foundation. We're talking long-term, massive contracts with defense departments, intelligence agencies, law enforcement. This is steady, predictable money. It's also a business that's almost impossible for anyone else to get into. You can't just waltz into the Pentagon with a new piece of software. You need security clearances. You need years of trust. You need a reputation for being bulletproof. Palantir has that in spades. They've built a fortress around this part of their business. But the real story, the reason we're talking about them now, is the second bucket, their commercial business. A while back, they realized that the same problems the government faced, drowning in data, different departments not talking to each other, not being able to see the big picture, were happening everywhere. Big companies have the same issues. A giant bank is trying to stop money laundering. A pharmaceutical company is trying to speed up drug discovery. An airline is trying to optimize its flight schedules and maintenance. All of these are insanely complex data problems. So Palantir started taking the battlefield-tested technology they built for the government and adapting it for the corporate world. They started selling to companies like Airbus, Ferrari, major banks, and healthcare providers. And this is where things get interesting, because there's this incredible synergy between the 2 sides of their business. The government work is like their high-stakes R&D lab. They prove their tech in the most demanding environment imaginable. Then, when their CEO Alex Karp, this wild-haired philosophy PhD, walks into a boardroom to talk to a Fortune 500 CEO, he has the ultimate trump card. He can basically say, look, our software is trusted by the people who protect this country. It's secure enough for the CIA and tough enough for the Army. Don't you think it can handle your supply chain issues? That's a hell of a sales pitch. No other software company can say that. The government business gives them this halo of legitimacy and trust that money can't buy. Now, their business model was always a bit weird. A bit different from other software companies. Most software as a service, or SaaS companies, they just sell you a license, give you a login, and say, good luck, call tech support if you have a problem. Palantir's approach was the complete opposite. They have this strategy built around what they call forward-deployed engineers. It's a military term, and it's deliberate. They don't just sell you the software. They send in their own elite engineers, their own special forces, to live with you. These people embed themselves inside the client's organization. They work side by side with the client's own people to understand their problems, to integrate their messy data, and to make sure the software actually works and delivers results. The upside of this is that it creates an insane level of customer loyalty, or what the business world calls stickiness. Once a company has Palantir woven into the very fabric of its operations, managing its factories, detecting fraud, running its clinical trials, it's almost impossible to rip it out. It would be like trying to perform a heart transplant on yourself. The switching costs are astronomical. So customers stay, and they tend to spend more and more over time. The downside, though, was that this was a really slow and expensive way to grow. The sales cycles were long. It took a lot of highly paid engineers to get a new client up and running, and it was hard to scale quickly. For a long time, this was the big criticism of Palantir. Cool tech, but can it ever be a truly scalable business? And that brings us to the technology itself, because you have to understand what it is they actually sell. It's not just one thing, it's an entire ecosystem. First, there's Gotham. This is the original platform, the one they built for the government spooks. It's named after the city in Batman, which tells you all you need to know. Gotham is an operating system for global decision-making. Its superpower is pulling in information from a million different places: satellite imagery, intelligence reports, sensor data, you name it, and fusing it all together into a single, coherent picture. It lets an analyst see connections and patterns that would be completely invisible otherwise. It's the platform that helps you find the needle in the haystack, or more accurately, the terrorist in the city of millions. They've even integrated AI into it now, so it can do things like help identify targets and suggest courses of action in real time. It's some real-life Tony Stark stuff. And it can work on the edge, meaning it can run in a Humvee in the middle of the desert with no internet connection. Gotham is the source of their power, the foundation of their entire technical moat. Then, for the business world, they built Foundry. If Gotham is for governments, Foundry is the operating system for the modern enterprise. It's designed to solve what they call the data silo problem. Every big company has this. The marketing department has its data, the finance department has its data, the factory floor has its data, and none of it talks to each other. It's a mess. Foundry is designed to break down those walls. It connects to all those disparate systems and creates what they call a digital twin of the entire organization. It's a living, breathing model of the whole business. But it's not just for looking at dashboards and charts. The real magic of Foundry is that it's a closed-loop system. It helps you turn data into decisions, and decisions into actions. A manager on a factory floor can use an app built on Foundry to see that a machine is about to fail, automatically order the replacement part, and reschedule the production line, all from a tablet. It's about operationalizing data, not just analyzing it. Now, holding all this together is a piece of technology that most people have never heard of, but it might be their most important strategic asset. It's called Apollo. Apollo is essentially a delivery system for their software. Its mission is to make sure that Gotham and Foundry can run anywhere, and I mean anywhere. On a public cloud like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure? Check. On a company's own private servers in their basement? Check. On a network that is completely, physically disconnected from the internet, what they call an air-gapped environment, like on a submarine or a forward operating base? Check. This is a game changer. Most modern software companies are cloud native, meaning their stuff only works if you have a stable internet connection to their servers. But Palantir's customers, especially on the government and military side, often operate in places where that's a luxury they don't have. Apollo allows Palantir to deliver the exact same advanced software to a desk at the Pentagon and to a laptop on a submarine. It's their secret weapon for dominating the defense tech space, and it gives them a massive advantage over competitors who are stuck in the cloud. But the most explosive piece of their tech stack, the one that has completely changed the story for this company in the last couple of years, is their artificial intelligence platform, or AIP. They launched this in 2023, right as the whole world was going nuts over generative AI and large language models like GPT. Palantir's genius move was that they didn't try to build their own foundational model to compete with the big guys. Instead, they built a platform that lets companies securely use those powerful AI models on their own private data. This solved the single biggest problem that was stopping big, serious organizations from adopting AI. The CEO of a bank or a hospital can't just start feeding their sensitive customer data or patient records into a public AI model. That would be a security and privacy nightmare. AIP is like a secure sandbox. It allows an organization to unleash the power of AI on its own data, behind its own firewall, with total control. It lets them build AI-powered tools that understand the unique context of their business. And this thing has been a rocket ship. The launch of AIP is the primary reason their financial numbers have gone parabolic recently. And how does it all work? Underneath all these platforms, Gotham, Foundry, AIP, is the real secret sauce. It's a concept they call the ontology. This is maybe the most important and least understood part of what they do. It's their deepest, most fundamental technical advantage. An ontology isn't just about collecting data. It's about giving data meaning. It's a framework for creating that digital twin I was talking about. Think about it like this. Most companies have data lakes or data warehouses where they just dump all their raw data. It's like having barrels and barrels of crude oil. It's valuable, sure, but you can't put crude oil in your car. You need a refinery to turn it into gasoline, jet fuel, and plastic. Palantir's ontology is that intelligent refinery. It takes the raw data, the numbers in a spreadsheet, the text in a report, and maps it onto the real-world concepts of the business. It defines the objects, like a customer, a product, a machine, a supplier, and the relationships between them. This customer bought that product, which was made by this machine, using parts from that supplier. It even defines the actions you can take on those objects, ship the product, schedule maintenance for the machine. It creates a rich, dynamic model of the business that understands context. It's the reason why AIP can be so effective. The AI isn't just reading raw text, it's interacting with this high-fidelity model of the business. It understands what a shipment delay means and how it impacts a customer order and factory inventory. This ontology is the result of nearly 20 years of work in the most complex environments on Earth. Competitors can try to copy a specific feature or a user interface, but replicating this deep, semantic layer, the soul of their platform, is next to impossible. It's their true moat. Okay, so the tech is insane. But what about the money? For the longest time, Wall Street looked at Palantir and saw this black box that was burning through cash. But in the last few years, the picture has completely changed. It's actually kind of shocking. They've now had multiple straight quarters of profitability under the official accounting rules. GAAP profitability. That's a huge milestone. It's what got them into the S&P 500 index. It signals that they've graduated from being a startup that's just focused on growth at all costs to a mature company that can actually make money. And their revenue growth is not just growing, it's accelerating. In their most recent numbers, the growth in their U.S. commercial business was staggering. We're talking a 93% year-over-year increase in one quarter. That's not a typo. 93%. That's almost doubling your business in a year. This is the AIP effect in action. They created this program called AIP Bootcamps, where they go into a potential customer and, in just a few days, build a working AI application that solves a real problem for them. This is their old, slow, multi-year sales cycle. Customers can see the value almost instantly, and they're signing on the dotted line like never before. And while the revenue is exploding, they're getting more and more profitable. Their operating margins are jumping up, which means they're showing huge operating leverage. That's a fancy way of saying that for every new dollar of revenue they bring in, more and more of it is dropping to the bottom line as profit. The profit machine is starting to spin faster and faster. Then you look at their balance sheet, and it's a fortress. As of mid-2025, they were sitting on something like $6 billion in cash and short-term government bonds, with basically zero debt. $6 billion. That gives them incredible flexibility. They can invest heavily in R&D, they could buy other companies, they can weather any economic storm without breaking a sweat. They don't need to rely on anyone for money. There's this metric that a lot of investors use to judge elite software companies. It's called the Rule of 40. The formula is simple. You take the company's revenue growth rate and you add its profit margin. If the number is above 40, you're looking at a healthy, high-performing company. Well, in a recent quarter, Palantir's Rule of 40 score was 94. That's not just good, it's astronomical. It's a number that you almost never see. It's proof that they are achieving that holy grail of business, hypergrowth and high profitability at the same time. The numbers are, frankly, undeniable. The company is on fire. So, with all that said, this has to be the greatest investment of all time, right? Well, not so fast. This is where the story gets complicated, and this is where the real debate begins. Because for every bull who thinks this company is the future, there's a bear who thinks it's a house of cards. The single biggest risk, the elephant in the room, is the valuation. The company's stock price is sky high. By almost any traditional metric, price to sales, price to earnings, it looks incredibly expensive. The PE ratio has been in the hundreds. What that means is that the market is pricing this company not for what it is today, but for what it might become many, many years from now. The current stock price assumes near-perfect execution and continued explosive growth for the foreseeable future. It's like betting on a rookie athlete and paying a price that assumes they're going to win 10 championships. The potential is there, but you're paying for the potential upfront. This leaves very little room for error, what investors call a margin of safety. If their growth slows down even a little bit, if they miss Wall Street's expectations for one quarter, if a competitor makes a surprise move, the stock could get absolutely hammered. You're walking a tightrope at that valuation. Then there's the customer concentration. Even with all their growth, they still rely heavily on a small number of very large customers. In 2024, their top 20 customers accounted for almost half of their revenue. A huge chunk of that is the U.S. government. This is a double-edged sword. On one hand, these are stable, reliable customers. On the other hand, it makes Palantir vulnerable to things like government budget cuts or a shift in political priorities. If they lost one or two of those massive contracts, it would be a huge blow. And their deep ties to the U.S. government and its allies also put a natural cap on their market. They're not going to be selling this software to certain other major global powers anytime soon. Their fate is intrinsically linked to the geopolitical landscape of the Western world. That's a powerful position to be in during times of conflict, but it also limits their total addressable market. And you can't talk about Palantir without talking about the ethical controversies. This has been a cloud hanging over the company since its inception. Because they build such powerful tools for surveillance and data analysis, they constantly face questions about privacy and civil liberties. Their work with agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, has drawn intense criticism from human rights groups. People worry that this technology could be used to create a surveillance state, to monitor citizens in ways that are pretty scary to think about. Palantir's defense is always that they are just a software provider. The data and the ultimate control belong to the customer. They say they build in strong privacy and auditing features to prevent abuse. But the reputation as a spy tech company persists, and that can be a real problem for them in the commercial world. Some companies, especially in Europe where data privacy laws are much stricter, might be hesitant to partner with a company that has that kind of baggage. It's a brand risk that isn't going away. Finally, there's the competition. They're not operating in a vacuum. You have the tech titans, Microsoft, Amazon, Google. Microsoft is probably the biggest long-term threat. They have a massive, captive audience of corporate customers through their Azure cloud platform and Office software. They have the ability to bundle their own AI and data tools into those existing products, making it a simple and cheap alternative for a lot of companies. They might not have a solution as powerful or integrated as Palantir's, but for many businesses, a good enough solution that's easy to buy from a vendor they already trust could be a powerful competitor. You can never, ever count out Microsoft when it comes to enterprise software. So, where does that leave us? You've got this fascinating, polarizing company. The bull case, the argument for Palantir, is incredibly compelling. They're not just a software company, they're a fundamental piece of infrastructure for the AI age. They are the trusted arms dealer for the digital transformation of the entire Western world. Their AIP platform is a revolutionary product that is unlocking a massive commercial market and fundamentally improving their business model. They have a fortress of a moat, built from unique technology, deep government ties, and incredibly high switching costs. And their financial performance is just stellar, accelerating growth, rising profitability, and a rock-solid balance sheet. But the bear case is just as powerful and just as scary. The valuation is priced for a future that is far from guaranteed. Their growth is still heavily dependent on the U.S. market, and it's an open question whether they can replicate that success globally. The ethical and brand risks are real and could limit their expansion. And the shadow of competition from the biggest and richest companies in the world is always looming. In the end, investing in a company like Palantir isn't really about the last quarter's earnings report. It's a bet on a certain vision of the future. It's a bet that the world is only going to get more complex, more dangerous, and more data-driven. It's a bet that in such a world, the ability to see clearly, to connect the dots, and to make critical decisions based on data will be the most valuable commodity there is. Palantir is betting its entire existence that it can be the one to provide that clarity. They are building the operating system for this new era. Whether they succeed in becoming the dominant platform they aim to be, or whether their high-flying ambition comes crashing down under the weight of its own valuation and controversies, is going to be one of the most fascinating stories to watch in the world of technology and finance for the next decade. It's a true high-stakes drama. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a company can build a system that truly understands and can model every component of a complex organization, every person, every machine, every transaction, and then use AI to optimize and even automate decisions within that system, what is the ultimate endpoint of that technology? Forget supply chains and battlefield intelligence for a second. What happens when you point a system that powerful not at a company, but at an entire society? See you next time.